Okay, let's start the second turn of Parthenon, and the first thing we do is we turn up the first event of year 2, Hubris. The god's wrath is kindled against the impious islands. The Archon must choose one island without a shrine to discard all its commodities. Okay, well, like we said, we had a sort of an agreement that Naxos was in the lead. Of course, the Archon has the opportunity to ask for favors. And some of the other islands have more than one commodity. Rhodes, for example, has 2. So here it's a time to see, is the Archon going to be picking on the leader, or is he going to see if he can gain a little something from his buddy Rhodes? This would piss Rhodes off to no end. He's going to pick on Naxos. Oh wait, Skyros has 2 items too. I think he's actually going to consider Skyros. Yeah, he's going to pick on Skyros. Now that's not making him any friends, but he does have a certain relationship with Rhodes at this point in the game. So he's telling Skyros, look, give me a commodity or you're ditching him. Now Skyros has a gold, so he will pay his bribe. Now the question is, do you push it further? And yes, he's going to push it on Rhodes too. Now this is dangerous because this means that he's making enemies here, and Rhodes also has a gold and is going to give that up. Now people are getting angry at him. Naxos is next, and Naxos obviously is not going to give him a commodity. They'll discard their ore. He'd have to hit somebody anyhow. He's just not going to hit himself. Okay, so that's the first event here, and Crete has made himself into something of a pariah already. When Skyros started talking, well, Rhodes, he got too greedy taking the second one, I think, but he really wanted both after getting one. Okay. So now we're going to go to production and the island trade, and Crete may find themselves in trouble here because nobody may trade with them. Everybody may be so angry at them. At least Skyros and Rhodes are going to be kind of cutting them off. Whether some of the others are, hard to tell. But those others may do so in order to garner favor and try to get the election themselves. Okay, let's jump back. I'm not sure I want to do this because I just noticed Skyros has the nihilism. And they're going to use that ability to prevent Crete from taking from them. And what that's going to mean is that Crete's not going to take from Rhodes either. They're not going to make themselves into this enemy. I think the fact that it could be prevented was enough. Now, this is a problem I have with a game like this, and I actually have it when I'm playing not just Solitaire, is forgetting all the stuff that I have. Of course, playing just one power is a lot easier to remember, but this is a common issue I have with a game with a lot of little complex interactions. Anyway, I'm collecting the resources. So, a good deal of trading has been going on between the players. Some of them have been able to collect, say, 6 of a kind in order to build a workshop. For example, Crete has. They still sent their fleet out to try to pick up that free wonder plan. If they can get that out of the way, then maybe they won't want to go to Athens again. We'll see how that goes. Everybody sent ships out. Some of them, well, one of them, the Skyros, bought Stoicism for a gold. They have an academy, so they can do that. And that allows them to ignore the shipping a hazard. Now, our first hazard is for the closed fleets, and we see 3 people have played for that. They've each sent 2 ships out, thinking maybe that'll help. They get a safe journey, they're going to get there fine. We can turn up the harbor straits, but let's take a look at the hazards for the 2 other people who went to Italy, and 1 person who went over to Egypt. Now they're going to get 2 each. Safe journey, that's good. And pirates, every fleet loses a random commodity. Now, what's not clear here maybe it says here, you may reveal this to allow that fleet to avoid the effects of a pirate or blockade. You know, let's see what this other blockade stated, because I think it's specific. All passage has been blocked. Every fleet must reveal a warship in order to trade here. See, this talks about the warships. This hazard doesn't. But anyway, every fleet loses a random commodity. Every fleet. So splitting your forces up wasn't terribly useful. Now, am I misplaying this? I can't tell you. Because the rules seem to indicate that these cards, let me put this somewhere where I can see it. These cards only kind of affect one person. After drawing sailing, the Archon draws 2 hazard cards. I don't know. Somewhere in there it talks, because some storm hazards target fleets with the most cargo. Okay, so I think that has to be specified on the card, which is what I'm looking at here. But what I find odd here is, what about this pirate who doesn't say that a warship protects you? I'm guessing it does, but if I start seeing ones that say that specifically, I'm going to feel a lot more uncomfortable about this. Alright, well, let's take a look at the people who went out this way. First is Orange, Skiros. He used Stoicism. Once per year, he's allowed to declare that he can ignore all hazard cards. Well, when does that happen? I don't know. He's going to do it now. I mean, he bought it to use in this. He would have triggered it beforehand, but it looks like you can choose afterwards. I'm not sure if that's the case. So he's made it in with his 1 fleet. What about Blue with their 2 fleets? They don't have anything to protect themselves. They lose 1 commodity per fleet. Now they split their stuff up with the direct impression from the rules that that would be safer. That it would be safer to have more fleets. And then they lost both of their items. They might have kept their important gold otherwise. Now they've got nothing over in Italy, and they're kind of cursing because the rules have led them astray. I don't like being led astray by rules, and neither do my little personae. Alright, and let's go to the last one. That's going to be Naxos. Now what's interesting here, the Academy, it had to happen during the build phase. You know, I can't think that far ahead. So I don't know. I kind of cheated with him by buying it, but I don't know if I'd ever buy it if not. So he's going to lose 1 off his single fleet. Lucky him, he didn't split his commodities. He'll lose this one, which is a grain. I think that screws him, but we'll see. Let's take a look at what the harbors are. First, everybody's over in Athens. What's there? A wool shortage. Wool is going to trade 1 for 1 for gold over in Athens. Anybody who brought wool there is going to be very happy. And people who didn't but produce wool may very well be traveling there. Okay, let's see what's in Italy. Harbor fees. Every fleet has to discard a commodity of its choice in order to trade here. We'll see whether or not people do that. They probably will, just because they can pick up gold in order, if they have gold with them. So Skiros only brought a gold. Oh no, he only brought an olives. I thought he brought a gold with him to get armies. I don't know why he's there. He only brought olives. He's obviously not going to actually trade there, so he'll just go home. And we're not going to worry about him. He'll be using what he's got. He doesn't, well, yeah, it doesn't make sense for him to trade there. A and B, well, they don't exist, basically, so they're going to be going home for free. Let's take a look at our final one, which is over here in Egypt. Ore surplus. You can get ore cheaply. 4 ore for any 1 basic. Or 1 basic gets you 2 ore. So it's very hard to dump ore there, but buying ore is a little cheaper. So if somebody is interested in ore, and is Green interested in ore? Not terribly. They produce 3 ore, and they're kind of screwed by showing up there. Can they ignore it? they can. And I think they probably will. Because they're bringing an ore there, which won't be tradable otherwise. It's a painful card to get rid of, but I think it's the best they can do. Now here's what's hard. How do I remember that I used this card here through all 4 of these turns? I can remember I used the card, but it's going to be tough to remember where I used it. I don't have any little markers, and I don't see an easy way to remind myself of that stuff. I guess in many players it's not as hard, especially if you're only playing over, you know, the hour or 2 the game probably takes to play. But the way I play it, yeah, it's not going to be that easy. It's not designed to support the kind of play that I like to have. Alright, I'm going to go back and handle whatever trading and building happens at this point. You know what I also ought to do? Each of these players gets a draw. Let's look at Chios's first. The Colossus. During the fleet trade phase, pay Carthage 1 rare commodity. So I have to bring Carthage a rare commodity to get that. And now, once I build that, once I do that, I then get the next level of partial construction, and eventually it'll be completed. I'll dig those out in a bit, but that's Chios's. Let's go over to Crete and see what they pick up. Temple of Artemis. At the end of the event phase, discard all of your commodities, at least 1. Ooh. That should be easy, to try to reduce yourself to very few commodities and produce this. That sounds like a fairly easy wonder to build compared to these others where you have to sail to a specific place. And then the final one is red, which is Lemnos, Temple of Apollo. During fleet trade, 2 olives to any neighboring land, Athens, Sparta, or Iona. Yeah, that's an easier one too. I'm hoping the Colossus is a much better card, and we'll see how valuable maybe it is. What is this? During the fleet trade, 2 olives. Did he bring 2 olives? That would be awesome if he did. No, but he might be able to arrange it, and that would be helpful. I'll pull out the secondary cards for those and see what they're going to look like, and handle the trade and building and come back. And briefly, let's see what everybody took. Lemnos, well, their best option was to pay olives over to Athens, which they had with them. They were able to turn 4 of their goods in for that. And they're going to get to the Temple of Apollo. The next thing is they have to deliver 3 olives. Now, olives aren't easy for them, but that'll get them towards their wonder. Now, their wonder when they get it is during the island trade phase, any other island can pay you a rare commodity to ignore the effects of pestilence for the rest of the game. That doesn't sound that great, but they've got to build this to win. And the wonders are the most important thing in the victory condition. So if you can get a wonder built, you're further along. And if you can get it partially constructed, you're further along than a player who hasn't gotten that far. So grabbing that seems important. It pushes other people to need to do it before the end of the game at least. Okay, the next one, let's look at Chios. Chios had 1 of each commodity, and were able to buy a pottery workshop. That's going to give them what's essentially a rare commodity. Now, that's worth more than these basics. How much more is a real good question. But at the very least, trying to get it from here, rare commodities give you 2 basics if you trade them. And basics, it takes 4 to get a rare. So chances are you can get 3 basics for that. That's a pretty good deal. Also, you can trade with other people who are building their rares, making it more possible. And finally, pottery is what's needed to build the marketplace. Is the marketplace terribly good? Well, it's valuable if you can trade with other people. It gives you gold in exchange for having, what, like 3 resources of another player? Or do you turn them in? Marketplace. Trade 3 basic resources not produced by your villages for a gold. Now, does he have to build this? No, not terribly, but he'd have to take an alternate to replace it if he did. So, in order to win, in order to end the game with all the houses or all the buildings, he would have to have that. It's not his top priority, though. His top priority has to be getting the wonders built. The first wonder built is more important than getting 2 of them partially constructed as well. All right, let's go on. Next player here has a hand that he's showing to everyone, and he's discarding an ore. He bought nothing. He had nothing he really can do with his production. Turned out to be a bad turn for him. On to the next one. Rhodes also built a workshop, this time a tool workshop, another commodity. Now tools give you a fortress which allows you to build armies. That's very cool, actually, because armies allow you to improve your production. It costs one of grain, grape, and olive to build an army, but then he can start producing more. Now, he produces grapes and olives, and it should be fairly easy to get the one remaining resource if he wants that. Of course, he hasn't built the fortress yet, but that's not too expensive. Let's look at the next one. Over here, Crete, the Archon, also built a workshop. He bought a spice workshop. And a spice workshop will give him eventually a shrine that allows him to buy these gifts of Poseidon, which he can ignore current hazards, but draw a new hazard. As we've seen, a lot of those it doesn't seem like the event that I was kind of worried about, which was I drew a hazard for myself and it doesn't really affect me. It actually seems like most of them aren't just the ship with the greatest number or whatever. So I'm not so sure these second ships were worth buying. We'll see. Okay. Let's go on. Let's go to Lemnos. For some reason I'm holding. He already went, and he's holding a couple of cards. Okay, Skyros here was in an interesting position. He's going to hold 3 cards at the end. He was kind of screwed in terms of not making any trades, so he went home with all his stuff. He's going to turn 3 things in for an extra village, his expensive grain village. It's the best he can do, and the cards that he turned in, he'll be producing all of, because the hard one to get was the grain card. That's the end of this turn, except for deciding the Archon. I haven't done that yet. Gotta kind of look and think who's in the lead. Very clearly, Lemnos now has kind of a leading position with their temple there. That's frightening. On the other hand, other people have some productive capabilities that blow everyone away. The pottery here, this is less interesting at this point. The tool workshop, that's kind of scary. The spice workshop. So, kind of looking at Skyros, looks the weakest of the bunch, and I think everybody's going to agree on that and elect him Archon. Not sure it's absolutely everyone. You might see, Crete trying to cut a deal with Rhodes or something, but I just can't see people allowing that to happen. The next weakest person is probably Naxos, and they're in, I think, significantly better shape. Alright, I'll load this one up. We're kind of moving slower than I'd like to for this, but I feel it's kind of interesting to look at all the decisions, since the rules don't really give you a good feel for the game. I think you need to play through it to get a feel.